I remember reading a story about the hare and the hyena. I think I was around 5 years old. And in this particular story, the hare told the hyena, let us go home and let us beat our wives to death. I don't remember hyena questioning it. Honestly, I don't have my facts 100% concerning this story because I can't find it on the internet, but I'm just giving, the major plot. The hyena did not question. They went home, and from his house, the hyena could hear sounds coming from hare's house. Boom, 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 boom. And then he'd hear a woman crying, a woman screaming, and he concluded, my friend hare must be killing his wife, so I might as well join in. And he decided to beat his wife till death. The next day they come together, and the hyena finds out that, you know what, actually, hare and his wife were drumming and screaming and drumming and screaming. And hyena is now a widower, and hare still has his wife. I use this story specifically today because I'm loving how my generation has come to a place of taking responsibility, being active Earthlings. I say Earthlings because it goes beyond us being citizens of Kenya, beyond our jobs and everything. Like, as human beings existing on this earth right now, we've come to a place where we are no longer being acted upon, but we want to act. We want to know. We want our leaders to take accountability. And sometimes we come to information that looks so extreme and so big. Somebody has to be an extremely demented psychopath for them to actually do this and to have reasons for doing it. So most times people will dismiss a lie that looks too big because if you can't do it, then there has to be a standard for humanity, even the most brute of beasts of humanity, right? Well, my answer for that is that it all comes down to faith. And what has happened to us is what happened to the hyena, where the hare came and said, leave your God behind. I'm going to kill my God. You go home, you kill your God, and then we're going to come here and meet as men. There's going to be a separation of church and state. That was only, initially enacted during the founding of America by the founding fathers. And they were pushing for a separation of church and state and religious freedom, which sounds like a good thing. The first thing I realized in history, people tend to rise to prominence or enact their plans by creating a problem and then providing a solution. So they infiltrated many faiths, not just Christianity, and they infiltrated the Catholic faith. And we all know the Dark Ages, we all know the history of the papacy. Like, the sins of the Catholic Church have not been hid to the larger population, and not just the Catholic Church, but Christianity as large. And then they come to this new world with people already living in it. And they're saying that as we're founding this country, there's going to be a separation of church and state. We don't want a land that, like Europe, is ruled by Christianity, is ruled by bishops and popes and all that. We want a land independent, secular. Actually, let me read that for you. It says, the Constitution is a secular document for a secular government. The framers of our Constitution incorporated the two pillars of American democracy, religious freedom and church-state separation, into our founding documents, building what Thomas Jefferson revered as a wall of separation between church and state. The founders got a lot wrong, but the church-state separation and religious freedom they got right. The US Constitution was the first government document in history to declare that the power comes from the people, not gods, small g. Our Constitution was the first not to mention a god or deity. Our Constitution was the first to ban religious tests for public office. In fact, religion is mentioned only twice: in the First Amendment, which bars laws respecting an establishment or religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, and in Article 6, which prohibits religious tests for public office. We constantly hear the words New World. The New World is coming, the New World Order, New World, what. But in the American dollar, it says something about, I don't know, Novo Sudri Ordo Secluro, something like that, the New World. And that I'm just going to write it here. It translates to something about the New World, and which tells me that the New World Order did not begin, or is not something that is set for a certain Vision 2030, Vision 2025. Of course, certain things are set for then. I don't know. I'm not part of those fraternities. But What that tells me is that what we're seeing today is something that was planned all those hundreds of years ago. You understand? So they established this state whose constitution was especially banning religious practices. But this is the problem. The people doing it were not absent of a faith themselves. The United States founding fathers, including George Washington, George Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, and Paul Revere, were well known across the US for laying the foundation upon which our country has been built. Just as their devotion to the fraternity is lauded amongst Masons. And then it goes down to break down each individual Mason, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, Paul Revere, John Adams. This is a good number. I think it's around 4 or 5. And the founding fathers are 7. So it goes, and of course, birds of a feather flock together. So you can't say that 4 of them are Masons and the rest are devout Christians. So these are people who had their own religion and who were saying, you know what, we are just going, because their religion is a secret religion. It's not registered as one of the world's faiths. They said, go home, kill your God, come here. This is a no-God zone, right? But they did not make it a no-God zone. We have their statues, their emblems, their pictures, their signs everywhere, their altars. They clearly worship something. They worship it in our faces. They push it down our throats, and they tell us, come here without God. My whole conclusion is that it all comes back to faith. That big lie that looks so big, it sounds so crazy, you have to be a conspiracy theorist to even consider it. The reason why it's being done, and if your question is why, is because it all comes back to faith. Why is every economy in the world suffering? We might complain about the Congo or Kenyan finance bill. We seem to have the most incompetent people in governance and government, especially in Africa. And you'd think that white people countries have it all good, because we're saying, okay, if all our good resources, all our wealth, all our minerals are going to these particular countries, these countries should be getting richer and richer. But then you look at the Wanjiku of America and you're hearing about their housing policies. You're hearing about their their healthcare policies, how pathetic they are, the complex places, how the whole economy is highly reliant on debt. It's a credit system. And not only do the individuals owe the government or whoever it is that lends them that money or created that system, but the government itself owes the Federal Institute, the name that's here on screen right now. The government itself is already indebted to a group of elite families that are the ones that lend money to these institutions. We can look into that later. So all this wealth that is being taken from poorer countries to richer countries is clearly not helping the poorer citizens of those particular countries. Because if indeed these countries are becoming richer, we should be seeing the citizens there thriving. Do you understand? Which brought me to this conclusion, or this place of separating leaders and citizens and world systems and its victims. You understand? So if you're wondering, all these things look so big and so complex, and why are they doing this if it's not even helping their own citizens? They're doing it for their God. At the end of the day, they're doing it for their God, and their God clearly has a plan for humanity. But you've been told to leave your God behind. Kill your God. This is a no-God zone. Okay? Now, let us look at that in the Bible, because the Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. The book of Numbers, Balaam is hired by Balak to come and curse the Israelites because their spiritual alignment was so good. Like, you could not penetrate their ranks, you could not infiltrate them, you could not conquer them in any way. And this Moabite king became afraid, and he decided that there's no way, and he knew this is something spiritual. It's interesting how in all world history, every person knew, there was a clear understanding of the spiritual versus the physical, and people understood how to manipulate the physical through the spiritual. So this man knew he can't win a physical battle without some form of spiritual aid, and he called Balak, and Balak tried to curse the Israelites, and he failed. Look, this woman caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against the Lord in the incident of Peor. and there was a plague amongst the congregation of the Lord. These women caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam. So Balaam failed to infiltrate them because they were so aligned and God could not find anything against them. He advised these people, you know what? Send your women. Send your women, let them curse themselves because they are blessed beyond a curse. Blessed is everyone that blesses them, cursed is everyone that curses them. So we cannot curse them, but they can curse themselves. How? Let them walk away from their God. Let them indulge in sin and filth. And because of that, God Himself will curse them. Their own God will turn against them because they've turned their back against their God. And the second one is in the book of Daniel, chapter 6, verse 6 to 9. Let me start with verse 5. Then this man said, we shall not find anything against this Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God. And then it says, so these governors and satraps thronged before the king and said, King Darius, live forever. All the governors of the kingdom and the administrators and satraps, the counselors, the advisors have consulted together to establish a royal statute to make a firm decree that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which does not alter. Therefore, the king Darius signed the written decree. But you know what happened after that? The minute Daniel heard that this sin is punishable by death, worshipping any other god but Darius at that time is punishable by death, he went and engaged and signed his death sentence. He immediately went, opened the windows, prayed facing Jerusalem, because he knew the game that is being played. These people have nothing to lose because their semi-gods are whorish. They don't care if you worship 100 of them as long as you're not worshiping your creator. The Bible says in Isaiah 45 verse 9, woe unto him that strives with his maker. Let the potsherd strive with the potsherds of the earth. Shall the clay say unto him that forms it, what are you making? Or shall your handiwork say, he has no hands? Oldest trick in the book. I cannot curse you, but I can make you curse yourself by making you turn away from your God. So, child of God, it all comes back to faith. Do not bow. Do not assimilate. Do not defile yourself with the meats of the king. The whole point of this episode is to encourage you to think, to encourage you to ask why. And when a lie seems so big, too big to be believed, then it comes back to faith. If they are doing the desires of their father, the devil, then they're just going to be as cynical, as psychopathic, as tormented, demented as he is. So don't be surprised. We live in a very wicked place. So there's no such thing as a no God zone. If God cannot enter that space, neither should you.